Over the weekend, the Trump administration deported hundreds of Venezuelans that it says are gang members.
The Alien Enemies Act is being used for the first time ever in U.S. history when there is no active war happening. This is devastating for many different reasons, but it is one of the darker chapters of American history when we had Japanese internment camps here in the United States of America, as you guys might recall, during World War II. Instead of learning from those lessons and vowing to never repeat them again, Donald Trump has now decided to use that same act, this time against Venezuelans that he actually brought here, Venezuelans that had to escape Venezuela as a direct consequence of the sanctions regime that he implemented against Venezuela, and then also offered temporary protected status to. Donald Trump was such a fan of TPS that he actually offered an extension on the TPS, temporary protected status, that he had afforded to the Venezuelan migrants coming in from Venezuela, the refugees, on his way out. Now, 4 years after that fact, when he's back in office, he's back with a vengeance. He's now decided that if you are of Venezuelan descent in the United States of America with a temporary protected status, which means proper documentation, mind you, as a refugee, he will revoke it. He will treat you as a hostile enemy combatant, and he will falsely smear you and claim that you are a part of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. And even if judges decide that this is illegal and try to hit a TRO, temporary restraining order, to stop the administration from falsely shipping Venezuelans not to Guantanamo Bay this time, but instead to the CCOT facility in El Salvador, which is a direct concentration camp, the Trump administration will still follow through. They do not care. Let's take a look.
Over the weekend, the Trump administration deported hundreds of Venezuelans that it says are gang members, despite a judge's order to turn the flights around. The law at issue dates to 1798. A constitutional clash is likely looming.
Well, we are now seeing a real showdown between this administration and the judicial branch. The White House this morning is celebrating this move, insisting the president is acting within his authority to speed up deportations, despite that directive from a federal judge that these Venezuelan immigrants be returned to the U.S. immediately. This morning, hundreds of alleged Venezuelan gang members are waking up in prison in El Salvador after the Trump administration rapidly deported them, ignoring a federal judge's directive. This video shared by El Salvador's president shows the...
It's sad that we will never ignore injunctions or court orders at the behest of a greater good for the public. Like the what are you going to do about it mentality should have been ever present when the Biden administration was following the letter of the law and using its executive powers to abolish all student loan debt. Right? Can't do that. No, we can't do that. Those are institutions that we must defend. Here's how you do it for evil. It only goes in one direction.
The alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang arriving in San Salvador Saturday, just hours after a judge ordered planes carrying the men to immediately...
Yeah, they're doing straightforward Nazi propaganda on this, by the way. There is no justification shown whatsoever that any of these people that were targeted and picked up were actually a part of any gang. Even if they were a part of Tren de Aragua, by the way, this kind of, like this right here, what they're doing here is completely unjustifiable. We have due process. You can't do that, or you must not do that. We're officially in the black bagging stage. ICE comes in, does dragnets, grabs people, claims that they're Tren de Aragua, claims that they're a part of a terror group now, claims that they're a part of a gang engaging in criminal activity, and then ships them to a foreign nation. And we've contracted out, because we outsource everything, we've also outsourced our concentration camp, dude. This is how it happens. For people that wonder, like, how did we get here? How did Nazi Germany become what it was? Like, this is it. You're here. You're watching it happen. You're watching an overseas example in Israel, and you're watching the domestic example here in the United States of America.
We return to the U.S. Trump over the weekend invoking the Alien Enemies Act, an obscure wartime law from 1798, allowing the government to deport non-citizens with little or no due process. The law last used to play a role in the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II.
I'll simply say they never should have been allowed into our country in the first place.
Trump allowed them into the country. Trump is a major role player in why they had to leave Venezuela. Okay, it's not just about Maduro. Trump and his sanctions regime on Venezuela played a very big role in the Venezuelan economy going tanking even further at a time when they needed aid. They said Maduro's a bad guy, fair, sure, whatever, okay, and use that as a justification to make the economy scream. and the economy did scream. Many Venezuelans escaped Venezuela. They went to Colombia. They went to other Latin American countries. And a lot of them also came to the United States of America. Trump, politically, as he has done in the past, as the American administrations have done in the past with like Cubans who are escaping Cuba, right, offered Venezuelans temporary protective status. He said, you guys are political refugees. We are anti-communist. You are anti-communist. Come to America. We'll use you. Right? That's usually the goal for American empire. They bring in a bunch of reactionaries or bring in a bunch of people who are escaping political repression and use them as a propaganda tool. So that's what we did. The American government did that. And in the process, Donald Trump was such a fan of offering temporary protective status to the Venezuelan refugees that came into the United States of America that he actually extended it on his way out. And now he turned around and is revoking the TPS in this insanely violent manner. Documented or undocumented, but virtually all of the Venezuelans on U.S. soil are documented. They have the paperwork. They got temporary protective status. The Trump administration turned around and black-bagged a bunch of Venezuelans that they had actually welcomed into the U.S., inside of the U.S. boundaries. And in a pure political ploy, decided to ship them to the El Salvador anti-terror prison unit. I need you to understand how insane this is. I'm not being hyperbolic at all. Okay, this is not hyperbole. Nayib Bukele says, today the first 238 members of the Venezuelan criminal organization Tren de Aragua arrived in our country. They were immediately transferred to CICOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, for a period of 1 year, renewable. The United States will pay a very low fee for them, but a high one for us. Over time, these actions, combined with the production already being generated by more than 40,000 inmates engaged in various workshops and labor under the Zero Idleness Program, will help make our prison system self-sustainable. As of today, it costs $200 million per year. On this occasion, the U.S. has also sent 23 MS-13 members wanted by Salvadoran justice, including 2 ringleaders. One of them is a member of the criminal organization's highest structure. This will help us finalize intelligence gathering, go after the last remnants of MS-13, including its former and new members, money, weapons, drugs, hideouts, collaborators, and sponsors. As always, we continue advancing in the fight against organized crime, but this time we are helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence. They're making their prison system self-sustainable by doing slave labor. I don't know what words to use. Like, it is not hyperbolic at all when I say this. We're there. We're here. Okay? This is it. This is the first step of the final act of the darkest chapter of American empire.
Responsibility to protect our families, to keep our streets clean and safe. And that's exactly what the president said he was going to do.
But after some non-citizens represented by the ACLU sued the administration, that federal judge in an emergency hearing Saturday.
Yeah, they also actively ignored the court orders, okay? The White House says it ignored a court order to turn around 2 plane loads of alleged Venezuelan gang members because the flights were over international waters and therefore the ruling didn't apply, okay? It doesn't matter anymore. Like, they're basically saying, like, nope, there's nothing you can do about it. They were already in the air. Like, it's crazy. No rules, baby. Once the plane wheels are up and you're on international airspace, is over. You can do whatever you want.
Saturday ordered any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, adding this is something that you need to make sure is complied with immediately. The 2 planes already in the air, sources tell us the administration made the calculated decision to ignore that directive. Sources say the planes carrying the alleged gang members took off during the hearing, the administration eager to get them in the air out of U.S. airspace and over international waters before the judge's ruling. In response to that order to turn the planes around, the president of El Salvador, a Trump ally, posting, "Oopsie, too late."
They needed to be brought back.
The other side of this, aside from like the active cruelty that we are watching in broad daylight, is that they're so fucking lame. Like, oopsie libtard. It's like I don't know what the historic equivalent of this is, okay? Like, the aesthetics are also busted. Everything is devolved.
And the judge absolutely had authority to do that. The United States government, the executive branch, defying a federal court order raises the stakes enormously, not just in this case, but for how we're going to proceed as a constitutional public.
But the White House this morning insists the administration did not violate the court order and that the president acted within his authority, claiming federal courts have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs or ability to remove foreign enemies.
I get what you're saying, but why would you want gang members in your country? Oh my God. Oh my God. Chatter, I'm going to explain this one more time. Why do you believe everything that the government tells you? Why do you automatically assume that every single person being deported is a gang member? Why do you not want the American court system to actually actively handle violent gang members? Why? If there are violent criminals that have engaged in violent criminal acts and they don't have citizenship on U.S. soil, I want them to be prosecuted and placed in an American facility. I want the victims to see justice. That's number one. Number two, these people that are being deported, a big part of this problem right now is that they're nabbing everybody, whoever they can, without any sort of consideration, without any due process whatsoever. Due process is a right, exists for a very good reason. It's so that the government doesn't do this, because the government that can do this to Venezuelans can do this to other Americans as well eventually. And if you think that they're not going to do that, you are fucking delusional. Think about it. We didn't use the Alien Sedition Act post 9/11. We didn't even use the Alien Sedition Act post 9/11. There is no war happening right now, and the Trump administration is claiming that it's an invasion. How do you not see that this is an even greater expansion of the previous surveillance state? This is not a justification for the previous surveillance state. I have fought against it every single step of the way. Having said that, this is moving beyond that now. This is a logical conclusion.